So we're continuing here in Yevamos Hey Amid Aleph. We are on the top line. So the Gemara is picking up from the previous Gemara where we're still trying to figure out what's the source that Aseh is docheh. So until now we had the whole Daf Dalet was discussing the source of the smichos, right? The connection, the fact that the pasuk lo sil sha'atnez semra fishtim yachdov, right next to gedilim tasalachs, which means if you have the tzitzis, and the only way to wear the tzitzis with climb, there's a conflict between Aseh and the Aseh. So we say Aseh docheh. We say that put on the tzitzis. And the Gemara said that according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, the Tana, the only time he'll darshan smichos is in Dvarim, Sefer Dvarim, for one of two reasons. Either it's muchach, he has some question, which right is going to motivate him to darshan the smichos, or it's mufneh, there's something extra. And the Gemara told us that in this situation, what would be extra is semra fishtim. The word semra fishtim is extra, but only according to the Tana and the Beri Shmuel, who anyways learns from Negaim that anytime it says in the Torah beged, we know it means semra or pishtim. So therefore, over here it doesn't have to say semra pishtim because it says beged by sha'atnez. So that's what makes it extra. So the Gemara picks up from there. So very good. If you hold like Tana and the Beri Shmuel, it says the word semra fishtim is extra because it already says beged. But the Rabbanon who don't agree, they say we don't learn out from Negaim that just because it says beged, it automatically is only referring to the material of semra pishtim, right? So then you don't have extra words. Semra pishtim is not extra. So again, assuming that you don't usually darshan smichus, the only way to darshan smichus is in Devarim because of the opinion that says it needs to be mufneh, something extra. There's nothing extra. Says the Gemara. Let's try a whole other source how we could prove Aseh docheh Aseh. So the learner from the word rosho. Where does it say that? The Tanya. The Oraysa says rosho. So let's just look at the pasuk. You have the pasuk there on the side here. So it's the pasuk by mitzvah. After the mitzvah, he has a saras, and then the saras goes away. So then he does some shavings with korbanos. So this pasuk is by the 7th day of his tahara process. The halacha is, the pasuk says he has to shave off all his hair, as rosho, the hair of his head, as sekano, the hair of his beard, as gabos enov, his eyebrows, as kol saro, again all the hair. Yigalech, he shaves off yichibes his begodov, and then he goes into the mikvah and he's tar. So the Oraysa is trying to figure out, it says that he has to shave all his hair, and then it goes on to get specific. His head, the hair on his head, and why does it have to go to the specifics? So here we're focusing on the rosho. Rosho, take off the hair of the head. Why does it have to say that? It already said all his hair. The fish and Emmer, because a different pasuk says, Lo sakifu pa'asrei. You're not allowed to cut off the payas, the corners of the head, the hair on the corner of the head. So Shomea af mitzvah, you would think that also the mitzvah should not cut it off. It's a losaseh. Takein tamalema rosha. So here the pasuk is emphasizing you're allowed to and you're supposed to. It's a mitzvah. Cut off the hair of the head, even the payas. Because this Tana is assuming that even if one shaves off all the hair of the head, that's included in the prohibition of lo sakifu, of cutting off payas. Meaning there's a general question elsewhere that what's included in the Isser of payas? Payas literally means the corners, the sides. So it for sure means if you only cut off the sides. But if once you cut off all the hair at the same time, there's a question if that's included in the Isser. So this Tana, who requires a pasuk of rosho to teach me that you're allowed to, and it's actually a mitzvah, to cut off even the payas, only needs the pasuk because he assumes there was an Isser. If there was no Isser, what's the chiddush? Of course, it says you cut off all the hair. So the only reason why he's assuming there's an Isser is because even though the Masorah is cutting off all the hair, that's included in the Isser of lo sakifu. So that's what the Gemara is suggesting. Only because of Rosho teaches me Aseh docheh. Here's a conflict between Aseh docheh. To which the Gemara says, you could ask on this, you can't prove from here that Aseh would be docheh. Here the Gemara, as Rashi explains, is going back to Yibum, our case. You wouldn't be able to go back to Yibum and say that we should also learn out there Aseh docheh. Because you only see over here Aseh is docheh when the lav is not as strong. It's only a lav which is only applicable to some. Doesn't apply to women. It only applies to men. So yeah, by a lav, it only applies to men and not women. It's not shava to everybody. It's not equal to everybody. So then we say Aseh is docheh that lav. But in a case, let's say like Yibum, there's a lav. Everybody has the lav of arayos. There's courage. Everybody has that lav. So do we say that our say of Yibum would have been docheh the say until you have a pasuk of a lav? Says the Gemara. Elo, we have a different Oraysa. Aseh, he's going to learn out mizakono. The next word in the pasuk, the beard. It says specifically cut off the beard by the mitzvah. The Tanya, so the Oraysa tells us the zakono matamulom again. Why do you need the zakono? It says already cut off all the hair. Fish and emru pasuk konom lechu. Since it says this is by the kohen in parsha's Emor, the kohen, the kohanim, the corners, the 5 corners of the beard, they're not allowed to shave off. Meaning with a razor, we learn out. You might think that even if this kohen is a mitzvah and he's on the 7th day, and the pasuk would say to cut off all the hair, you might think you can't cut off that hair because that's included in this. And by the way, the mitzvah by the mitzvah is with a razor as well, so you can't get out of it by saying I'll just use the scissors. No, it's with a razor. So you might think that don't cut it off. So the pasuk emphasized you even cut off the hair of the beard. Okay, so you're going right. So this is a source that say docheh. Now we're going to ask the same question. Well, it's a lav that's not shavah to everybody because this lav only applies to men, not to women. To which Gemara says, "Vim eino inyan lalav she'eino shavah bakol tanehu inyan lalav hashavah bakol." But being that, anyways, we don't need any source that I say is docheh by a lav which is not shava to everybody because we have the previous price of Rosho, so we already have a source for that. It says Zocha Lav Sheino Shava Bakol. So why do you need Zakono to teach me the same thing? If not for that, so we'll learn it for all Lavin. I say Zocha any Lav, even if the Lav is Shava Bakol. And that's going to be our source for Yibum. That why you need Allah. If not for Allah, you would have said that the say of Yibum is docheh the Lav of arayos. Until we'll get back to that question of karis, that it's different. Says the Gemara, no. It's still not a good source because I would have thought shining kohanim holavariba and manikos mitzvahs yuseris. Kohanim are different because the Torah gives them extra mitzvahs, and therefore you would have thought afilu lav shein shava bakol. Even though the lav of cutting off the hair of the beard, written by the kohen over there, is not shava to woman, it's true. But you would have thought lo docheh. You would have thought that lav cannot be pushed away even with an aseh of mitzvah. Kamash malon the docheh. Says the pasuk is still there. So what the Gemara is trying to say here is that really maybe anytime you have a lav which is shava bakol aseh is not docheh. So you wouldn't need Allah by Yibum to teach me that you don't do Yibum, right? So why do you need Rosho and Zakono to teach me aseh is docheh a lav that is not shava bakol? Just have one of them. Answer is because if you only had Rosho, which was by Yisrael, you would have thought that's by Yisrael. But by Kohen, even the lav that's not Shava Bakol, like Zakono, it's not Nidche, because the Kohen have extra mitzvahs. So we're more stringent with their mitzvahs. They can't be pushed away so easily. So we're left still with a question, do we really have a source that Yaseh would be docheh a lav, which is Shava Bakol, which applies to everybody? So Gemara finally says, Elo asya mirosha dahachtan. There's a different word rosha in a different pasuk that a different Oraysa discusses, and we'll learn it from that place. The Tanya says the Oraysa rosha imatamoloi mar. Why does it say rosha? So this is the rosha of mitzvah. I'm sorry, it's the same pasuk. This is the rosha by this pasuk of mitzvah. Why does it say rosha? And this Oraysa has a different way of explaining, different conclusion. Lefish and Amar, a different pasuk says tar lo yavra rosha. So this is the pasuk by the Nazir. The Nazir, it says a razor cannot pass over his head. So since the pasuk says the razor cannot pass over his head, there's a lav shomeaniaf mitzvah and Nazir. So what happens if this Nazir happens to also be mitzvah and the pasuk says by mitzvah you have to shave off the hair? So again, it's in a situation where you have a conflict between the lav of ta'ar lo yama rosh by the Nazir and aseh of mitzvah. So what do? You might have thought the lav applies. So here, this Oraysa learns out that Rosha teaches me the Nazir mitzvah goes ahead and does the mitzvah aseh of cutting off the hair. And here, the reason why this is a better source than above is because here it's an aseh being docheh lav, which is shava bakol, because this What's the lav? It's by a Nazir. A Nazir applies. A man could be a common Nazir. A woman could become a Nazir. It applies to everybody. So the Gemara says. By the way, as a side note, the Gemara Nazir does discuss. Has two opinions. There is another way to view Nazir that it's not Shavuot, because you can look at all Nazirim as their own section of Klal. So they're the Nazirim. The rest of the people don't have the lav of Nazir unless they make themselves into Nazir. So there's that discussion there. But this Gemara is assuming that Nazir is an example of is the perspective we have on Nazir is that it's applicable to all, because as much as not everybody is a Nazir, and probably most people are not, but it's applicable that everyone it's possible for everyone to become a Nazir. Which Gemara says still not going to be a good source for all lavit, because Mala Nazir Metzora Shekayashta Mesheila. Maybe there's something different about Nazir Metzora, because it's possible to take Nazirus and go to the Chacham and matir it. And since there's that weakness in Nazirus, so that lav of Nazir is more easily pushable away, more nidche. So that's why that says docheh. I'll prove to you that that's a good way of perceiving that lav. To perceive the lav as a weakness because of the concept of yeshna b'sheila, it's able to be pushed away, it's appropriate, as we'll find right now. Because if you don't say that, we have a rule that Aseh is not docheh, a mitzvah which carries both a negative and a positive, that's a rule we have. But why? Ligmar me Nazir. We should learn out straight from here. This exact example. The Nazir Mitzvah, he has an Aseh of Mitzvah to cut off all the hair. He's got a lav and Aseh. He has a Lusei, don't cut off the hair. He has an Aseh of Kadosh Yegadol Para, grow the hair. So why don't we say that we have a pasuk, it says in Ferish, what's the pasuk? Rosho, cut off the hair. Aseh is docheh Aseh. It must be Ella Minazir my time Lagamrina. Why are we not learning out from here for in all kol Turkula? Dikla Mifrach. It's got to be that we ask this kasha. You could always ask that Nazir is different as much as a lav Aseh, but the whole Isser of Nazirus, the whole rule, the whole mitzvah of Nazirus comes with it this weakness that it's possible to push it away with she'ela, going to the chacham and permitting it. So for the same price, we're able to push off in the general, even Aseh being docheh los Aseh without the Aseh, maybe Aseh is not docheh los Aseh, which is shava to everybody. And the Gemara will just say the words now, but we'll go through it next time. So rather, the Gemara is now going to go back to Talar and Aleph, to the first line, go back to the Tzitzis and climb the source, and bring that back and show how there is still room to learn out from there, even though Tzemra Pishtei are not extra, so let's continue next time.